Welcome back to our channel, and today we'll be talking about parking your money to beat inflation. Yeah, welcome back, Ash.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to be back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
for sure.
I love it, man. Sitting in this ambiance, nice, beautiful window with winter ambiance, right? So it's a little bit different.
You know what's amazing? No matter where you are, you want to get away somewhere, all you have to do is sit in front of a beautiful
A large TV. Large TV.
and you're transported to a beautiful chalet. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically the topic is about parking your money.
Okay.
Like what does that mean?
You mean in your mattress? Is that what we were talking about?
Listen, in the mattress it deflates, right? Right?
Very good.
That's the problem, right?
Very
So-
good. Especially in the current climate we're in right now. Yeah.
Yeah, because everybody is kind of afraid about, real estate investing and all of that stuff. Obviously, we've gone through some crazy times and crazy period.
Yeah.
But I think parking your money in real estate still and will always make sense.
For sure. As long as you have time on your side, I don't want to say you can't lose, but history shows that real estate typically you can't lose as long as you have time. I mean, times like this, last 18 months have been very interesting to say the least.
Yeah.
There are other things that you could look at as well. I mean, gold and precious metals, a lot of people are talking about.
Sure.
There's other sectors you could focus your energy on. Crypto, I don't want to say the magic C word because that is extremely speculative, but you do hear of people that have made returns. Now, you have to be pretty well versed to know what you're doing.
Yeah, but you need different knowledge, right? Like you need different knowledge and a different network to play that game, no?
Absolutely. So I think out of everything that's been going on over the last few years and over the last few decades, I think consistently real estate still is something that most people would say is the easiest bet to make that would help, like you said, stave off or beat the inflation index. Yeah.
I would definitely agree, right? So like owning a piece of real estate historically, like you said, has shown a great success, and I'm a strong believer that it will continue to do so. Moving forward, especially with these crazy environments. Somehow, tangible real estate always tends to kind of rise to the top, right? Like.
Well, here's a great story.
People need shelter.
Listen, people need shelter. But here's a great story. How many times have, you had a conversation with someone, maybe it's your family member, maybe it's someone that's moved here, or just someone you meet generally who maybe came without the knowledge, maybe couldn't even speak English, maybe, they were fleeing a country under not the best of terms, and they had to start all over again. And the one common thread out of most of those people is sometimes they say, all my mom and dad or all my parents or uncle, aunt, fill in the blank, did was they came, they bought a property, and they lived there for 40 years. And at the end of the 40 years, what ended up happening was they did better off just on that one purchase, which wasn't for an investment, it was just to live.
Sure.
Then if you look at the sum of maybe all of their working life and all that other stuff.
100%.
Exactly. And so if we use that as an example, we know a little bit more now to say, why don't you capitalize on that? Why don't we find a way that's your story? Where now we know a little bit better, not only could you use real estate for your primary residence or a place of living, but if you have a little bit of know-how, now you can start investing and really setting yourself for future generations up for success,
Yeah, so the biggest objection from clients, or the common objection overall, is it is expensive. But when you go back historically, I believe that obtaining a property, a real estate portfolio, or just a singular property, it was always expensive.
Yeah.
It is always, but the funny thing is not getting any cheaper.
It's not,
like, you know what I mean?
It's not getting any cheaper, but also too, like some of my favorite stories in real estate from people that have actually built a good life from real estate are the ones who knew the least about real estate and were the most afraid about real estate. And despite all that, they still took a chance. Those are the ones where if you listen to the stories, they're like, we didn't know what we were doing. All we knew is we had a family, we had to buy, we didn't have the money, we begged, borrowed, whatever the term,
Whatever we had
work,
to do,
double shift, triple shift, whatever, just to get in. And today they're like, we wouldn't have it any other way. I think what's happened, I can speak for myself and, as a society, as a culture, as Canadians, we live in a pretty beautiful place. And what's happened is we've become very comfortable, right? And when you become comfortable sometimes, you don't want to necessarily have to look at things that make us uncomfortable. You don't want to look at new investments because life is okay. Life is good. You don't want to work. Guess what? There's resources available to you. You don't want to expand to the next house. Well, guess what? The house you're in, it's not bad, relatively safe. I think you'd probably second the fact that, even the worst area in Toronto is still better than some of the best areas in other cities.
100%.
And so me saying that is not to, throw shade or smoke on anything. It's just the fact that we still live in a relatively safe place, even if it's not safe. So for that reason, a lot of people don't want to take chances, okay? But the flip of that, I would say, is, listen, we live in a place that the population is X today. It's going to significantly increase by Y. All those people at some point are going to need potentially a place to live.
Yes.
And you don't need to do anything other than investing in or partnering with someone else to tie something up. Another way to look at it is, so when that future person comes here, you now have a ticketed item for them that they can buy at a premium where all you had to do was be first. And we're already here.
Exactly.
We're already here.
And these trends are happening. Like I'm sure our city here in Toronto looked different 70, 100 years ago, or 30 years ago, or 10 years ago, and on and on and on. And as we're moving forward, I hear it more and more now from, my friends. They have kids now in university and stuff like that. And they're like, oh my gosh, I have rented a place for my kids for 4 years, 5 years. I should have bought at X. Now I would have, maybe paid it off, or I would have had some kind of equity gains.
Sure.
And et cetera, right? And they had that chances to do so. Now, having said that, let's say you don't buy a property. Let's say you said you're not interested.
Sure.
You still have to have funds to rent, lease.
Yes.
You still have to live somewhere.
Yes.
So just by you not purchasing or buying or not being ready for the next step, it's not going to be free. In fact, if you're following the last, 24 months with all the rate increases and all of that stuff, what is the trend? The landlords are caking it. Yes, they're having a hard time with interest rates and all of that stuff, but they have something tangible. And the landlords will find a way how to increase your rent. Yeah. It's not going to get any cheaper. So on and on and on and on.
So that's a very important point. Like, it's not going to get cheaper. That's, in effect, we're tying it back into what inflation really is. Inflation, in a very simple word, is the erosion of your buying power.
Yeah.
Point blank. And unfortunately, it's a dirty vehicle that's been used throughout time. And that's how governments stay wealthy.
Sure.
And that's how people stay wealthy, is because what happens is they drive down the value of the dollar, and those holding assets always benefit because those assets increase, right? And as population increases, it's supply demand. There's less supply, more demand. So the only way to counter that is people are going to pay more for those,
100%.
more for those items. More
100%,
for those items.
because that game of that, high ticket business government, well, we cannot change that, but we can change the other part of the game.
Of course.
Where to park the money, how to make it safe.
Yeah.
Because as inflation is becoming higher or more difficult, it's not that real estate market or assets are getting any cheaper, because the workforce is demanding more money.
Sure.
Everything around the build of a property is demanding more money at higher prices.
Sure.
So automatically, your asset is rising.
Of course.
Right? Like, people think like, okay, so now we're in a difficult time, things are going to crash. Listen, there are different reasons for different periods in historically.
Yeah.
And we have seen last year and the year before that we have seen some gaps where properties did decline, some parts more than others. Mm-hmm. But having the property in the right location will always demand the high price. no matter what.
100%. And the one thing I want to make clear to the viewers, most of you may know, some of you may not know, is what's changing in Toronto is the dynamic of the city. What does that mean? You know, aside from becoming multicultural and an international city, what that does is it increases population density. What does that mean? Everybody from the provincial to the municipal to the federal level, they need to increase urban intensification. What does that mean? They want people on transit. They want people in areas where there's mass connectivity. And so what ends up happening is a lot of people say, well, why would I buy a single house now? And the way people are going to live in the next 20 years is going to be very different. I think it's going to move more toward a European model or more toward maybe part of the Asian model where multifamily living is going to be the norm. Okay, so maybe it's time that we realize, hey, we grew up in, 3,000 square foot homes our parents had, or 2,500, because that was normal to live in the suburbs. That was what was normal. Land was available.
That was
right?
the dynamic back then.
Now what you might find is a family of 4 living in 1,000 square feet and being happy because that's what they want. And so part of the education that we're giving a lot of clients, or a lot of the conversations we're having, is how do we find older properties potentially in the city that can become multi-unit? And there's a big push from the government. You hear of laneway houses. You hear of government being able to garden homes.
100%.
You hear of a lot of positive things coming from municipalities to encourage multiple using, because they just don't have the units. They just don't have the units.
Well, I think it's heading that direction 100%. And then looking at trends around the world, like, for example, it is hard for us to imagine that our city will introduce, 470 square foot 3 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms. Like, we're thinking like a 3 bedroom has to be 1,000 square feet plus.
Of course.
Right? But we have seen that demand, especially in our core of the city and the suburban cities, that, purchasing a parking lot is an extra. Purchasing a locker is an extra, right?
I think they're really trying to deter or, discourage people driving. And I understand the logic, because if we can create these cities where people have most of what they need in that blockage, and we have, access to rapid transport that's relatively affordable. If we, let's be honest, unless, we're in a business like ours, you work for yourself, you work in a different city, how much time do you actually use the car? Yeah. Right? If we think about that, right? Like, there's all these costs, that's a whole other thing. But for the average family now that potentially has 2 people that work, that both need a vehicle, it's an expensive expense that if I had the choice of reliable, quick transportation that costs me a fraction of what I'm paying for my cars, I would get rid of one, if not both of my cars.
100%.
Right?
People are doing it across the city.
Of course.
So lucky for you, we have a project that is actually located right on the transportation hub.
Right. So one of only 2 true transportation hubs in all of Ontario. I want to say Ontario. It sounds
sure. Okay. Well, definitely Toronto and surrounding.
Definitely Toronto for sure. The first being Union Station, and when we mean transportation hub, it's 4 modes of connectivity, right? So they have the subway, they have GO, they have buses, they also have the extension up to Pearson, and they have Via Transit. The only other one, which our good friends at Ellis Dawn are building, is at the Kipling Station, which has the GO. It's got, I'm losing my mind here,
TTC, it has the
up to Pearson.
It has
the My Way for Mississauga. So you're connected to, the second largest market in all of the GTA. And we've been able to, because we've had success and because we're such proponents of that project, we've been incentivized by the builder to do a one-time only exclusive event where we're going to be giving, and we can't really say it on the camera, but we're going to be giving some incentives that just blow your mind. I mean, if ever you're on the sideline, or, maybe you yourself are not in a position to, but you have a couple of friends, investors that could, this is the opportunity, I believe, that you've been waiting for, because I think it's only 60 days, maybe 90 days before our market starts getting a little bit of an uptick.
It will.
These prices are not going to stay.
Well,
right?
It will have an uptick. The entire situation and how everything is positioned in our market currently, is all I have to tell you, if you see an opportunity, take it. Because that opportunity will not be here in 3 to 6 months.
Absolutely. And
as soon as they start dropping rates, and we have seen graphs, and we speak to people in positions that already kind of sense it through their channels and their network and whatnot. Nothing is 100% guaranteed, but the positioning is made for that.
Absolutely.
Right? So when that happens, the demand, which we are definitely behind in our city, and it seems like in the entire continent is behind the pre-construction build, and we definitely need more dwellings, and everybody is behind. As soon as they turn back the economy, forget it. It's going to be bananas.
It's the perfect storm. There's a couple of things, and we've probably touched on this on previous things. We know that you get it, but we see the trend coming. It's like saying, like, we see the shooting star. We know exactly when it's coming. So we basically want to get as many of you guys who are interested out in front of it to capitalize. That's it. Why not set yourself up? Why not set your families up? Why not get in front of a trend with relative ease before everybody else comes by and catches up,
Yeah, you see an opportunity, you definitely take it.
Absolutely.
Mesh, thank you so much.
Hey, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Thank you all for watching. Please like and subscribe to our channel, and see you next time.
We'll see you soon.